Welcome back, everyone. Oz here, and today I've got some r/BoomersBeingFools for you all. As per usual, I'll be reading the post, giving you my opinions, and I hope you do the same down in the comments below. And without further ado, let's jump right into it. JJ Jones, 8170. Boomer fucks around and finds out at a Trader Joe's. Boomer story. I have a love-hate relationship with this sub, but sadly it's my turn to tell a story about a boomer who pushed me too far. This happened a few weeks ago. I ran into Trader Joe's to grab a couple things before the weekend, and one of the things I was asked to get was a specific kind of soup. Lentil, if you're curious. TJ's was moderately busy, but for some reason, the seasoning/soup aisle was nuts. I waited my turn, and when I was up, I scanned the shelf for the lentil soup. I didn't see it, so I got down on my haunches to scan the lower shelf. Cue Boomer proceeding to hit me with his cart. I wasn't paying attention, so I thought it was an accident, so I looked up and said, "Oh, sorry, I'll just be a second." To which the boomer responded by saying, "Move it! You're too slow!" ramming me with his cart harder. I looked at him and said in a calm voice, "Do it again and you'll see how fast I can actually move." He got this smug look on his face and proceeded to ram me with his cart even harder. At this point, I saw the Trader Joe's associates moving towards us, but I was pissed. I had a kind of shit day, so I stood up and mule kicked the cart into his midsection, sending him to the ground. Now, to be honest, in retrospect, I am not proud of this, and recognize that not only was my response disproportionate to the offense, but I could have also injured this guy seriously. He was in his late 70s, early 80s, and slightly overweight. I'm not a big guy, I'm 5'8", 210, but I do run, work out, and generally take care of myself. The TJ associates helped him up and told him to leave immediately. He sputtered and pointed at me, and one of the associates just said, "We saw the whole thing, so please just leave." Reluctantly, he left and they approached me. The one gentleman introduced himself as one of the assistant managers and said, "We saw everything, but next time, please just come get one of us." I asked, "Do you need me to stick around to make a formal report? I.e., are you going to call the police?" He responded, "Nope, this guy has a history of coming in here and being rude and obnoxious to other customers, but nothing like this. We'll have to talk to the manager and get him banned." I thanked them, paid for my groceries, and left. When I recounted this to my friends, over half of them had stories that were similar, like what the fuck is wrong within some people? Hey, in your defense, you outlined that there would be consequences if he did it a third time. He smirked and did it a third time. Now, if he did it once and you turned around and immediately mule kicked him, I think that probably would have been a little bit too far. But the fact that he did it 3 times with a grin on his face after you had warned him, yes, it was probably a bit disproportionate, but at the same time, he kind of actually did ask for it. The bigger question is, did you ever find your soup? Because that's kind of the more important part of this. Did you get your soup or did you forget about it after sending the boomer possibly back home with his tail between his legs as he rants about how rude some people are that he was assaulted and yada 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 without filling in the full story of the fact that he started it and you finished it. Muted form 4367. WTF is with boomers not checking their bank account. Boomer story. I work for an insurance agency and my parents have their house insured with us. I see that their policy is pending cancellation due to not making their payment. So I texted my father yesterday and asked if he could check his bank app and see if they took it out or not. He sends me 6 different screenshots of different insurance companies, none of which they have, charging him amounts from $12 to $28. He goes on to ask, "Is it one of these?" Like, sir, are you fucking serious? First off, what home insurance can you get anywhere in the world for $12 fucking dollars? And then he gets mad at me for not telling him sooner, as if I have access to his bank account. Then instead of checking every transaction in his last statement and making note, he goes to the bank and only disputes one of the charges. Turns out he has 24 charges from random companies. Oh, and this morning he sent me 2 more charges from another company. I FaceTime him and he just gives me this stupid ass lead paint stare. I have never lost my patience so fast. To me, it sounds like your father might be the victim of a scam, which, happens, and that's very unfortunate. However, for him to turn around and blame you for it, and then on top of that, not actually doing anything but the fact that he's actively just getting his accounts drained by multiple companies and only disputes one of them, and still makes it your problem when it keeps happening? I mean, hell, there's a non-zero chance that he's blaming you for those transactions. Jateri. Yesterday we saw a boomer assault a minor at a lake. Boomer's story. We recently picked up paddleboarding as a hobby. There's a small man-made lake about 30 minutes from our house that we've been going to. There are houses all around the lake with little inlets that let the developers stack as many houses as they can around the lake. There are a few branches and access points to the water so the public can access it. The lake is public access with signs around stating that. The lake isn't any wider than 250 feet or so at its widest point. One of our friend's sisters lives at the lake and the HOA clearly states that the owner's property rights end exactly at the water, and even if they put a dock into the water, they don't own it because it's not on their land. It was getting later in the day, so I pulled my paddleboard out and was waiting for everyone else to be done. There was a kid that I saw put a small kayak into the water and was fishing about 200 feet from where he had put his kayak into the lake, across from where I was sitting. The kid was about 30 feet away from the shoreline just fishing. At some point, an angry boomer yelled at the kid to come over to buy his property so he could talk to him. The kid paddled over there. The boomer then started to yell at the kid for fishing in the lake, called him a parasite, and then jumped into the water and flipped over the kid's kayak, with the kid still in it. The boomer was then standing over the kid and he looked like he was going to drown the kid. The old boomer is yelling at the kid, and the kid sounded like he was having a panic attack, yelling at the boomer to get away from him. Everyone on the lake could hear it. Some people from our party saw it happen and paddled their boards over there. They intervened and the boomer kept trying to place the blame on the kid for being disrespectful. One of the people from our party jumped into the lake and was able to at least find his fishing pole. However, he lost the rest of his fishing gear as the lake is pretty murky and they couldn't feel it on the bottom. A few different people had called the cops at this point. When the cops showed up, he told us that as soon as they got the call, he knew exactly which person it was, because he's constantly calling the cops on people for doing perfectly legal things in the lake. There were 8 people that offered to give witness testimony, but the officer only took 4 or so of the statements because he said that would be enough evidence. The boomer was cited for assault on a minor and destruction of property. The boomer tried to say that he was innocent because he had cameras in his yard, but refused to show the police officer when asked to see it. If living on a small public lake causes you so much stress in your life that you need to attack a kid, I don't know why you wouldn't move. What if the kid had hit his head on the rocks when the kayak was tipped over? What if the kid had drowned? I usually am not a huge proponent of harsh sentences, but I hope they don't just brush the charges off. He could have seriously hurt this kid for not being able to keep his emotions in check. It's the fucking lead paint, man, I swear to God. Well, not just the lead paint. The lead in the gasoline, the lead in the food, the lead on the kids' toys, the lead's in the paint. The lead pipes the water was leaching from. So much lead, and a common symptom of lead poisoning is behavior problems, learning difficulties, lowered IQ, hyperactivity, and aggression. Lead can seriously fuck the brain up. And I do believe that a lot of these behaviors are a direct cause of the amount of lead emissions that were placed just into the human ecosystem in general while the boomers were growing up. Like, it's a factoid like this that helps explain behavior that we just witnessed, where a boomer will actively attempt to kill someone because they're fishing on a kayak on a lake that neighbors their house, and then claims to everyone that the kids started it. Knick-knack, patty-mack. Boomer demands premium hardware on a job that I did for free and paid for the parts out of pocket. Boomer story. I'm a locksmith. Since COVID, quality of hardware has plummeted on every brand. There have been multiple locks with problems with them from every company. Yesterday, I installed a knob for a baby boomer. I only charged her for the appointment and the hardware, did not charge her for labor, and gave her a veteran's discount despite not being a veteran. Well, the knob I put on was faulty. Not to bore you with the details, but it had a bad spring that allowed the knob to pop off. No, give me the details, I want the mechanical rundown, please. I completely refund her, eating the cost of gas and the hardware. She demands I replace it with a different brand. I go to the hardware store and grab a mid-level lever for her. I install it again, all of this for free at this point, while paying for the lever out of my own pocket. When I'm done, she looks at it and says, I'm not really happy with this one. I want you to go get a better one. I tell her that I'm not paying for this one out of my own pocket and installing it for free. She says she should be compensated for having to call me back out. Finally, I just tell her point blank, no. I reminded her that I'm paying out of my pocket and have a family to feed. She told me it's not her problem and I need to make her happy. I ask her if I replace it with a more expensive knob, if she feels that we should give her financial compensation on top of everything else. Without hesitation, she says yes. I think $100 should be fair. I take the lever off and tell her I'll be back. Drove off and blocked her number. Oh no, I'm gonna get a bad review from someone who was going to give me a bad review anyways. Thank God Google Reviews lets you respond, because the scathing review of the 1 star followed by I installed it for free, bought the hardware out of my own pocket, and you complained and asked for $100 out of my pocket? Yeah, no, you're fine. Never be afraid to argue with fraudulent reviews. Make them suffer and embarrass them. Don't be afraid to get petty with boomers, because at the end of it, they're like surface level insults, and the little concoctions they can pull out in the comment section is nothing compared to the kind of Twitter shitpost discourse we deal with on a regular basis. Never be afraid to embarrass someone who's unapologetically full of shit, even if it gets you sued. One hot mess, high definition. Threatened at a concert. Boomer story. My husband and I go to see the Dave Matthews Band at the George every Labor Day weekend. It's like our annual honeymoon trip, just the two of us. My husband is a disabled veteran and has a state-issued handicap parking permit. We followed the parking lot attendant's directions and backed into the spot that the attendant was literally standing behind as he guided us in. 2 boomer ladies sitting at the back of their minivan, a row back from where we're parking, get all flustered as we get out of the car and start squawking and waving their hands in the air as they rush towards us. No! 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 You can't park there! It's blocking our view! Of what? The fence outside the venue? There's no view. Our back bumper is up against a chain link fence that's 6 feet high and has a green cloth on the other side, so you can't see anything, even if you wanted to. And the magical thing on the other side of the fence? The line of people to get in the venue. My husband, as confused as I am over the ruckus, calmly says, "We're just following directions. The attendant told us to park here, so we're parking here." They keep screeching, mostly incoherent at this point, about people being so disrespectful, and no one respects their elders, and they are the ones that know how people should park. Finally, one of the ladies says, "Fine, park there, do what you want, but it would be a shame for something to happen to that pretty car of yours." My husband takes his phone out, takes photos of his car, walks over and takes a photo of their license plate, looks her dead in the eye and goes, "I've got a dash cam and really good insurance." We grab the rest of our stuff to walk away, at which point she grabs her sandwich she was eating at the beginning of the confrontation and hurls it at my husband. She missed by about 4 feet, but the sheriff that was patrolling the parking lot saw it and came to have a little chat with the old bat. The van wasn't there when we came out of the concert and our car wasn't touched. Honestly, the moment they threatened the car with damage, I probably would have told the parking lot attendant, like, "Hey, these people just threatened to damage my car for parking here." At that point in time, it'd be revealed that, oh, they're trying to watch the concert for free behind a covered chain link fence. And it would probably be handled from there, but there wouldn't be anything stopping them from coming back and keying your car. But still, getting their license plate, great move, especially when they're actively threatening. That's like, ugh. Like, thankfully, it's just stuff, but it's still annoying as fuck. Lucky you for having a convenient cop, I suppose, but at the same time, just like, damn. I do wonder if the cop wasn't there, if something would have happened and they would have tried to damage the car. And I mean, again, yeah, good insurance, sure, but there's still the annoying part of, you gotta bring it in to get fixed if it's paint damage, you gotta deal with all the hoops and hassles, the insurance company's gotta jump through a lot of hoops themselves, and you have to deal with the fact that you're probably gonna be losing time from work or have to rely on others for transportation, so it just becomes a goddamn hassle. Non-stop tomatoes. I'm currently being harassed on Nextdoor by a boomer who doesn't like my prices. Boomer freak out. I sell tomatoes on Nextdoor, all day, every season, for like 4 years now. My prices are 50% cheaper than grocery stores, as well as being giant heirloom varieties. Loads of options and sizes as well. Now, this boomer messages me and asks for free tomatoes. I said no. Maybe I'll do reduced prices, but not free. I work hard to grow them. he proceeds to start name-calling. I think he reported me for harassment, and then made a post about how I'm ripping people off and don't buy my tomatoes. Why are boomers so entitled? They complain constantly about young people being entitled, but I only see entitlement coming from the elderly crowd. A 2+ pound tomato for $3 is a great price, lol. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Edit with conclusion. I've had run-ins on Nextdoor with other people, and I've witnessed some very screwed up things happen to people. This isn't my first rodeo, as I've been selling on here for a long time. The mods or leads or whatever for my neighborhood are all Karens and Rebeccas, and oftentimes no one is listening to reason with a lot of Nextdoor issues. I'll not be reporting him. I will not be making a post to call him out. I'll have him blocked, I'll receive no punishment for the report, and I'm carrying on to continue to sell tomatoes. I'm surrounded by booming pieces of fuck, and I don't want to ruffle any geriatric feathers. Thank you for listening to my rant about them, but it will remain simply a rant. To those of you who want tomatoes, it's not very likely that we'll be able to meet up, and a lot of my fruits are spoken for, but if you'd like to learn how to grow your own, message me. I have tips and tricks and suggestions for different types, flavors, and dishes and purposes. Okay, this actually reminds me, I gotta make a mild correction. I don't remember which video it was in, but I made a statement that I don't stand by because I was extra tired and kind of just talking. Yeah, it is okay to rant on the internet. I think my main point was don't rant on the internet and post to an advice board, but I don't think it was an advice board. I think I just was being a little goofy in the head. So that's my bad. I fucked up there. It's not the first time I made a fuck up with that, but that being said, if you have active paying customers who are buying at your prices and happy with them, the one person who has never bought a product, who then asks for a free product and goes, "Huh, I'm never buying from you again," and then they leave and start ranting and raving about how shit you are, yeah, they're not a customer. They're just bullshit. They're trying to get free stuff and ruffle some feathers. The worst part probably is this is probably a learned behavior. He's figured out he can get away with this with other people, so there's probably people out there who he strong-armed into getting free shit from before in the past. If you give a boomer a cookie, he'll call you entitled. If you call him entitled, he'll report you on Nextdoor. If he reports you on Nextdoor, he'll demand free tomatoes. If he demands free tomatoes, don't comply, or else he'll come back for more free tomatoes. Murray BS. Boomer's certain she had an appointment. Didn't. Boomer story. This happened to me yesterday. It's 3:30 in the afternoon on a Tuesday, and a woman walks through the front door of my auto repair shop. After exchanging pleasantries, she says, "I have a 3:30 appointment for a state inspection." This isn't unusual, but generally, I look over the schedule for the day when I first get to the shop in the morning, so I have an idea of what jobs need to be prioritized, how much pressure we're going to be under, etc. And I didn't recall seeing someone on the books for 3:30. So I go ahead and pull open the schedule, and sure enough, I haven't got anyone in the 3:30 spot. So I apologize and have the following exchange. "Yeah, I don't have a 3:30 appointment." "Oh, yes you do!" I'm looking at my schedule and there's nothing in the 3:30 slot. I tell her this as I turn my screen around to show her that my appointment book indeed does not have anyone scheduled for 3:30. "Well then one of you idiots must have forgotten to put it in. I called yesterday and they put me in the 3:30 slot." That's unlikely since I'm taking bookings for state inspections a week in advance. That's how solidly booked I am. Did you happen to catch the name of who you talked to? "Oh, it was definitely Justin." We don't have a Justin that works here. Maybe you called another location? "No, it was here. I demand to speak to Justin." That'll be difficult because there isn't a Justin here. What phone number did you call yesterday? The old bag whips out her phone in a huff and basically shouts the phone number at me. I don't recognize it, so I Google it. Turns out the number she called was for a different shop across the town that has a name nothing like ours. So I tell her, yeah, that phone number is for insert shop name here. Which would have been enough for most normal, sane, and unleaded people. But nay. She doubled down. "I know the appointment is for here. I set an alarm and everything, and I don't make mistakes." At this point, the customer service is irrelevant. Well, evidently you do because the number you called doesn't go here. She goes ballistic in my lobby in front of about 4 other innocent bystanders, threatening my job, saying she knew the owner and he'd have her back on this. I shrugged and walked out of the office into the shop. observed her a few minutes later on the phone in the parking lot, presumably with her husband, screaming about how dumb and incompetent we all were, and then she got in her car and left. She, predictably, left a bad review, and the owner of the shop reviewed the camera footage to see what I'd said that had enraged her so badly. I'm in the clear, and we all had a good laugh about it. Too long didn't read, woman makes a scene because she doesn't make mistakes, but actually isn't infallible and made an appointment at the wrong shop that isn't mine. Again, don't be afraid to confront people in reviews, especially if it's something like this. Honestly, what you should have done is just had her call the place in front of everyone and put it on speaker. Just like, okay, if you're sure that the number that you called is in fact this shop, then call them again. And when the location picks up that's not your location, then you kind of have the ace in the hole right there. Especially because you can make her ask for the address of the other shop and then just watch as she realizes that she fucked up in that moment and enjoy the satisfaction of her walking out with her tails between her legs. I say tails? Like she has multiple? I mean, sure he doesn't have one, but multiple, huh? Damn. White pine burning. We have no buffet here. Boomer's story. My guy and I have a favorite Asian restaurant around the corner from us. We drop by a few times a month because the food is great. The servers are so kind. And the owner always stops by the table to sit with us and talk. It's like going to a friend's house. We stopped by last Thursday for dinner and we saw a "We have no buffet" laminated sign on the door. When the owner came over to chat and we asked her about it, she took a deep sigh, rolled her eyes, and pulled up a chair. Apparently, since she opened the place 25 years ago, people have come in expecting an Asian buffet. She's never had one. People looked around, saw that it's a small place and no buffet, and they leave. She said that's changed, however. She said she's been getting a continual stream of those old people who check in with the hostesses, are shown to a table and given menus. The server comes over with flatware, water, and tea. She gives them a minute and comes back. "We'll have the buffet," they say. Nowhere on the menu is a buffet listed. Look around at the 8 other tables and 6 booths. No buffet. The owner says that these folks always come back with, "What do you mean you got no buffet? All Chinese places have a buffet." They have a tantrum, get mouthy with the server, occasionally getting racist while they're at it, and storm out. But it doesn't end there. Even with the sign, the owner says she still has boomers read the sign, approach the hostess, and ask, "Why don't you have a buffet? The sign says you don't have a buffet." So for me personally, I hate buffets. And a lot of this stems from the fact that I'll just call her my grandmother, on my mother's side. To give you an interpretation of how the relationship is, I will oftentimes refer to her by her first name before referring to her as my grandmother. But for the sense of privacy, I have to bite my tongue on that. She is a buffet addict, specifically spending most of her time within Golden Corral. Now, for those of you who aren't American and don't know the septic wasteland that is Golden Corral, it's hell. I can't even begin to describe the hellscape that is that restaurant. It's an American food buffet with Americanized items like, well, I don't even remember what they fully have, but they have a lot of shit. Like, a lot of shit. And every time my grandmother would visit, I would end up going to Golden Corral and usually end up getting sick. It got to a point where I pretty much was guaranteed to be drinking a bottle of Pepto-Bismol every single time we went there. And because I was a child, I couldn't exactly say no, and would be scolded for not wanting the meal provided, which was Golden Corral. I have a very firm and fond memory of one of the first times going in there of seeing some 8-year-old with an entire slice of pizza, dunking it in a chocolate fountain and then eating it right there, licking his fingers, then putting his fingers in the chocolate fountain, getting burned by it, and then licking his fingers. It is a very firmly placed memory in my head, and ever since then I have hated buffets with a passion. I also hate buffets because I don't trust other people, and when it's open food, I don't trust that. I know some motherfucker reached in there with their bare little piggies and grabbed like an entire slice of chicken, touched everything else in there and just put on their plate, and now the entire thing's contaminated. The only buffet I'll tolerate is maybe a pizza buffet, but that's still pushing it in my eyes. Anyways, the boomer obsession with buffets, I do not understand it. Especially with the fact that if you want, like, good Chinese, good sushis, really good any kind of food, a buffet's not your option. If you want a quality meal, go to a place with a menu. If you just want to gorge yourself, go to a buffet. I'm the Atari. Boomer at the pharmacy. Boomer's story. I just went to the pharmacy to drop off a prescription. There was a Boomer behind me. As soon as the pharmacist came to the counter to help me, Boomer joined me and put her purse on the counter, not 2 feet from me. I said, as it's a bit of a private moment talking to the pharmacist, "I'll just be a moment." She said, "It's all right," and stood there, looking at us and listening. I said again, "Sorry, I'll just be a second." And again, she said, "No problem," and didn't move. Pharmacist started asking questions, and I said, "As we have no privacy, can I write down the info?" Pharmacist said, "Of course," and gave me a pen and paper. Boomer, "Oh, it's totally fine. I'm not listening." Then move, lady. Have you no idea how to move a few feet away to give people some space? Fletch rant over. Edit, I talked to the actual pharmacist and he was fuming. He said that never should have happened and he apologized profusely, and then talked to his staff right then and there. I've been going there for about 10 years and have never seen him angry like this. I'm glad I said something. "I'm not listening," she says, while interjecting as you're actively complaining that someone might be listening. Well, if you're not listening, then how did you know to make a comment about you not listening, huh? Could it maybe possibly be the fact that you were in fact listening to a otherwise private conversation that should be between someone and their pharmacist, especially if it's about medication that should be delivered in private and could be possibly a little embarrassing or publicly taboo to be getting? Huh? Also, most pharmacies have chairs for you to sit at while waiting. Why does she need to stand next to the counter? It's so weird. Just if someone sits in a chair, if someone else walks up, just make the comment of, "Hey, by the way, I'm up next. I'm just sitting down right now so I can rest my legs." And 9 out of 10 times, possibly 99 out of 100 times, people will respect that and they'll understand and they won't be like, "No, you're out of line, so therefore I'm next." Most humans don't act like that, except for, well, possibly boomers, but hey, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Don't forget, this is brought to you by GamerSupps. Use code ODDS at checkout. It's basically a caffeine powder that you put in your water, and I actually really like it. I use this on a daily basis. Don't forget that every purchase you make using code ODDS directly supports the channel. And if you want a personal recommendation from me, I would either recommend the Soda Pressing Pear or Dragon Fruit Punch. Those two are currently my favorite flavors. And as a note, once we sell a certain amount of stuff, I get my own flavor and my own cup, and you all know I'm gonna choose some degenerate shit that's gonna make their PR team squirm. My goal is to make them regret partnering with me. So please, use code ODDS at checkout to make my dream come true of making a PR team squirm.